today we're going to be talking about frequency separation, portrait photography, wedding photography, anything that you do and you want to make better, you can use frequency separation to really make your image stand out. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. All right, so here's the raw CR2 file uploaded into Lightroom with the initial adjustments done. All I've done here is raise the exposure plus 24. For reference, this photo was taken using off-camera flash. The camera settings were ISO 640, shutter speed 1/640th of a second, and the aperture is f2.8, and the photo was taken using a Canon 6D with a 24-70 lens. We're going to now set up our layers for frequency separation. You're going to right-click on the background layer, duplicate it, and once you duplicate it, you're going to rename this particular layer texture. You are going to duplicate it one more time, either right-clicking and hitting duplicate, or you can hit Command or Control J, and you're going to rename this one as blur. You're going to place this one on the bottom, and you're going to leave texture on top. You want your texture layer on the top and your blur layer on the bottom. And you're going to hide the texture layer, and then you're going to come up here, go to Filter, Noise, and then hit Median. You can also use Gaussian blur, but I prefer to use median personally. And so what you want to do, you're going to change the radius until you can't really see any of the texture or any of the blemishes on the face. So you want it pretty blurry, because ideally we're trying to just separate the color and remove that from the texture. So you want it just right underneath where you'd be able to see any of the texture. So I'm going to leave it on 15 and then hit OK. Once we've done that, we're going to toggle back on the texture layer and select it. Then we're going to go up and select our image, then hit Apply Image. And for 16-bit images, you're going to click on Layer as Blur Color, and then we're going to invert it. Go down to the blending mode, and we are going to go down to Add, and then the scale is going to be 2, and offset is going to be 0 for a 16-bit image. And so then we're going to hit OK once we have those values inputted. All right, so now that the texture is completely separated from the color, now we're going to change the mode of the layer from normal, and we're going to turn it into linear light. And that is going to successfully complete the separation of the texture from the color. And then we're going to pick up our trusty dusty clone stamp tool. So the clone stamp tool works by sampling one portion of the skin. So you hit Option, then click on one portion of the skin, and then you cover up another portion of the skin based on the area you're sampling. So as you can see here, I'm going through and clicking on one portion of the skin that looks really clean, and then covering up some of the uneven areas using that portion of the skin. So as you can see, I'm just going clicking and covering, clicking and covering, clicking and covering, clicking and covering. And this is kind of hard to see, especially on a portrait like this where the skin's already really nice. But I'm going to speed this up so that you can actually see what's happening as I'm sampling and going through and picking different areas of skin to clean up other parts. All right, now that we've got the texture done, we're going to go over to our blur color layer, and we're going to grab our lasso tool. So for my radius, I have it as 8. The reason it's at 8 is because I don't want there to be any harsh lines once I actually go in and do Gaussian blur here in a second. But basically what I'm doing is going around her skin and selecting parts of her skin that I want to be more blurry and smooth. So essentially, I'm making the color kind of meld together, similar to if I was using watercolor and blending two separate colors together using more water. So I'm just going around and selecting parts of her face, careful not to select any harsh lines such as a chin or a nose or on her eyes. Once we finish the selection, we're going to go up to filter, blur, then Gaussian blur, again on the blur and color layer. And then we're going to change the radius until you're kind of satisfied with the way that the skin looks on your subject. So for me, I like to go for a realistic, but a little bit blurry. So I went for 17.6. Then you're going to select OK, and then you're going to either press Command D to deselect or Control D for Windows computers. So now we're going to switch over to our mixer brush tool. Your mixer brush is just going to help you to blend in some more of the color so it looks a little bit more seamless, would be a good word to use. And so as you can see on the top, those are my load, my wet settings. And so right now, as you can see, I'm just kind of pushing some more of that lightness into some of that dark area, just trying to make that transition be a little more smooth. And so it's basically what the mixer brush does. It's just going to push certain color into certain areas, so pushing darks into light or lights into darks basically. And that is essentially it. Those are the only 3 tools I use. That's going to be clone stamp, mixer brush, and then the Gaussian blur for all of the retouching that I'm doing for this image. So I'm going to speed this up now so I can go ahead and finish out the image, and I will come back into the end and show you how I use Liquify to make any last minute changes or perfections that I want to add to this image. And we are basically done. The final step for me, I'm just going to go back in and use the Liquify filter. This is basically going to allow me to pull and push, warp, rotate any sites of the image that I kind of want to change or shift a little bit, but it's very, very minor, so you're barely going to be able to tell what I've done once I've liquefied the image. So I'm going to go ahead and save this and show you guys the before and the after, so you can see everything that we've actually just done for this image. Go ahead and go up here to File and Save, and then we're going to show you the before and the after. As you can see, there wasn't much that we changed, however, it's definitely noticeable. And so that is what frequency separation will do for your portraits. So hopefully you like the video. Hopefully this made things very clear and concise, so that you can add this into your own workflow when you're doing portraits. And if you are vibing with these videos, go ahead and give the channel a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks.